Today, we investigate what it is to be sad and happy. We explore how artificial sunlight can address some patients' wintertime depression and consider both happiness and mindfulness. Are they healing antidotes to the stresses of modern life or rip-off solutions to imaginary problems? I'm Martin Stanford. This is Insight. Welcome to Insight. Many of us who live in places with cold, dark seasons joke about needing sunshine during the winter months. But many of us actually do need both the light or brightness from the sun and the vitamin D it provides. The World Health Organization estimates 350 million people have depression, and a significant proportion also suffer with a type of it called seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. For Insight, Chloe Culpan investigates.
Like many cities, London is pretty dark and gloomy in winter. For some, this can be pretty serious. Seasonal affective disorder, known as SADS, is a problem for huge numbers of people around the world. The condition isn't fully understood, but is thought to be triggered by a lack of sunlight during winter. This pop-up in central London is literally shining a light on the problem by offering customers light boxes.
You can basically sit and work in front of it. You can just sit, do nothing. A good 20 minutes is definitely enough per day, or if you want less, it's fine as well. It actually helps you, it's kind of replicate the natural sunlight, and it helps you to regulate your body rhythm and also the hormones in your body that enhances your mood.
Getting enough light is important for the hypothalamus, a part of the brain which, among other things, controls hormone production. If it isn't working properly, levels of two important hormones could be affected: serotonin, which impacts mood, and melatonin, which is linked to sleep. Studies have shown that people who are exposed to bright light early in the morning produce more melatonin at night and so sleep better. It's not just a lack of light which could be affecting our health. Swedish health app Lifesum studied Londoners' diets and found that most were lacking key vitamins, including vitamin D, which can also lead to feelings of fatigue.
Well, they're missing vitamin D, they were missing zinc, they were missing iron, and yeah, there are some of the things they were missing. It was actually quite a lot, because in London you live a stressful life and you don't have often time to eat a well-balanced diet.
Now, some health food shops and juice bars are offering ways to boost vitamin D levels. Crush in London has made a special blues beta smoothie.
It's a great drink. It's got banana, blueberries, yogurt, so fat-free yogurt, and kefir, which is a fermented milk. And it's also got spinach in there, as well as a booster with 100% of your vitamin D requirement for the day.
Surprisingly, it isn't just gloomy countries where people struggle to get enough vitamin D. Dubai is one of the sunniest places on Earth, but the UAE has one of the highest rates of vitamin D deficiency in the world, with nearly 80% of the population affected. It's not known quite why this is when we get most of our vitamin D from sunshine, but factors including little outdoor activity and concern about skin cancer are thought to play a part. A vitamin D deficiency can lead to all sorts of medical problems, including weak bones, heart disease, or even cancer. So whether we're getting our vitamin D, sunshine or light from natural sources or supplements, it's clear we shouldn't underestimate how important they are for the body. Chloe Culpan reporting for Insight.
Well, let's talk about this some more. And with me in the studio, I have some of the antidotes for SAD or SAD, some of the light boxes that some people advocate. And sitting alongside them is Professor Paul Freiters, who's Project Director of the World Wellbeing Panel and Professorial Research Fellow at CEP Wellbeing Programme at LSE here in London. These light boxes, I haven't seen these small ones before, Paul, but if I briefly turn this one on, it's very bright. Warn our camera engineers here. The idea is that you put that alongside your face or quite close to your face for how long?
30 minutes to an hour is the usual length that people have these. But the main body in England, which tells you whether or not therapies work and what you should do in case of problems, mental health problems in this case, which is the NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, they don't really recommend these. And the reason for that is that they're not clear that they're very effective. They can work for some people, and in the case of emergencies, they are recommended. But they come with known side effects. You can get a headache if you look at these lamps too often, as you say already. They're very bright, but also they can start to irritate your skin, and hence
Really?
to a certain extent, because they're much stronger than natural light, they can upset skin as well.
For the supporters of such things, what science are they arguing works? What is it about the light that's doing us good, do they say?
So effectively, the notion is that this would increase the amount of serotonin and vitamin D in the body. Now, for vitamin D, you can take pills. For the serotonin, but also the light intensity in your eyes, you sort of need natural light, or you need some sort of light source. So if it's your only source of light, I guess if I were a strong sufferer, I'd certainly try it and see whether it's effective on me, because there's variation across people as for whom it works, and there's not a huge loss in at least trying it for a while.
This SAD phenomenon, like many mental health conditions, is very difficult to be precise, it strikes me. How do you reach a diagnosis? Is it possible to reach a diagnosis, a definitive diagnosis?
It is possible to reach some diagnosis, yes. So the main diagnosis is just for general depression. So the way that NICE treats SAD is just like any other form of depression, and the treatments that they recommend is like any other form of depression as well. So the treatments they recommend have to do with cognitive behavioral therapy. They have to do with particular drugs to reduce the serotonin uptake, as they call it. And they also talk about lifestyle. So we know that depression, for instance, is very strongly affected by stresses. And so they tell you, eat well, exercise a lot, and stay away from stressful stimuli. And so how do they assess these things? They effectively ask the patient how they feel, whether they have sleeping problems. There's a whole checklist of symptoms for depression that you can have, and they check whether it lasts long and whether you suffer from it regularly. And then the easiest way to find out whether you have SAD is to observe whether there's a seasonal pattern to this, whether this happens every winter time when it's dark. So for instance, my own wife is a very mild sufferer of SAD, and it's very noticeable that in darker times she gets a bit gloomier and she looks forward to the sun.
The complicating factor is, don't we all? I mean, in the wintertime, things are less comfortable, I suppose. You have to put a coat on to wrap up to go outside. You know, there are all these inconveniences of just experiencing life in this particular climate, such as the UK or maybe most of Northern Europe. And how do you separate, oh, well, that particular sentiment or that particular emotion or that particular body condition is due to SAD as against due to regular getting on with life?
I think it's true that in the general population you see a slight decrease in happiness anyway during the winter times, and there's the gloominess aspect to it, but also the bad weather and the fact that people are indoors a lot, so that there's less social interaction. So there are other reasons why the winter can be sad than just the weather, right? But of course, the strength of the effects vary enormously. So there are also quite a number of people who actually are better off in particularly cold weather, right? They sleep better. This is one of the things we know. They thrive under
those conditions.
They thrive. We know that quite a few people sleep better under winter conditions, and so they may actually be happy for winter to come. It's easier for them to sort of sleep well, which is a major cause of all kinds of problems, right? And so the SAD individuals effectively are more affected by this than others, and some are totally unaffected by it. So.
And all patients, surely, from all walks of life, have stresses, don't they? I mean, we tend to push our lives to the max and then maybe back off a bit. But, you might have problems about rearing children. You might have problems about your bank balance. You might have problems with your job. How do you, again, separate those are perfectly regular things which, if you like, everyone is going through as against the patient who is suffering from SAD?
Well, you effectively don't separate them. So the way of looking at it is that indeed everybody has stresses in life, as you say. But for individuals suffering from SAD, this is another chip, as it were, another drop in the bucket. And so those people would have to scale back their stresses in the rest of life to cope with those particular seasons, and hence would have to compensate when the weather is sunnier again. They basically have to be mindful of how they organize their lives, such that the stresses are slightly less when it's very dark for a long time.
Is it a phenomenon, do you think, that even common sense rules or guidance, sometimes we need to hear that from somebody else? And we all know we should maybe get a bit more exercise, we should maybe eat a little less of that fatty food. We know this stuff, don't we?
Yes, we do know that, and I think you're right that it helps being told sometimes by other people that this is good. But I think also many people are helped by just the recognition that this is a known thing. It's very physiological, right? It's not just in people's minds, as it were. There's a real effect of the weather on their mood and of sunshine on their condition. And in that sense, to have an external reason for some of their problems, to many people is a very soothing concept, and also something they can do something against.
And so, is it the case that if you could, if you went to live in a sunnier part of the world, you know, into the Mediterranean or Africa or something, that would fix it?
Well, from personal experience, and I'm not a sad sufferer, but my wife is slightly, totally. Right, it worked like a charm to a certain extent. We went to Australia. It was a very, very sunny place. It's just flooded with light and with sunshine, and back here in London, we'll see how we go. Right, and I personally recommend to friends who are sufferers from SAD to take a holiday in northern Morocco for a couple of weeks every winter. And I know individuals, academic friends of mine, who make sure that during the winter months they're actually in the southern hemisphere. Right, they ensure that they have gigs in Southern Hemisphere universities. And so I think that, yes, that is an option to sort of be away for the dark, gloomy months.
For some, not everyone, of course, can just head for the sunshine all winter time, do
Indeed.
they? OK, we will continue our discussion in just a moment. Coming up on Insight next, how to be happy. We'll be discussing why it's become big business to make us smile.